The Pyro is in a bit of an awkward spot as far as viability is concerned. You see, Pyro doesn't really have the advanced mobility of some of the other classes such as Soldier or Scout, or the same raw firepower as Heavy or Demoman. He doesn't have the area denial of Engineer, the supportive capabilities of the Medic. Holy fucking shit! Nor does he have the insane pick potential of the Sniper.
Crazy.
Why would you leave Goth City to go to fucking Stockholm?
On 217 kilometers per hour on average? That's ridiculous.
That's almost as fast as...
Though Pyro does have some unlockable weapons that help cover some of these shortcomings, they don't lift Pyro up enough. Pyro will simply never be as mobile as Soldier, as strong as Heavy, or as supportive as the Medic. Some would say that Pyro truly doesn't have anything special going for him. And to an extent, I do think that's true. In the chaotic cooking show that is Team Fortress 2, Pyro is sort of like a chicken. By himself, he is pretty bland and uninteresting. That is, until you add some seasoning. Some sauce. Pyro is often described as a jack of all trades by the community at large, but I would disagree. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. That is how the saying originally went, though the latter half is often forgotten nowadays, leaving the phrase with the inverse meaning of its original intent. And in the class hierarchy of TF2, Pyro is not exactly a jack. He is a 7. In my beginner's guide video, I ranked Pyro as the second easiest class in the game at a beginner level, just above Soldier. And I still stand by that statement. But if you've watched any TF2 video essays in the past, you would have heard phrases like timeless masterpiece and mechanical depth. And those phrases are one dead horse that I am absolutely going to continue beating alongside every other TF2 YouTuber on the planet. Because although Pyro may be simple on the surface, his sauce, or his wild sauce, is what makes him one of the classes with the highest capacity for skill expression in the game, rivaled only by Soldier, in my opinion. So here I stand today, to help you unlock your flaming hot Bulldog Ghost Pepper Wild Sauce or whatever the fuck. Much like my previous guide that I released in October of last year, this video will be all-encompassing. The intent is to collect and organize all of the information you could ever need if you were wanting to elevate your Pyro gameplay beyond the basic WM1 strategy into one place. This video assumes that you're already familiar with the basic mechanics and terminology of TF2. If you aren't, I suggest you watch either mine or Scary Broccoli's beginner guide, and then come back to this video when you're ready. First step, you gotta get into character. All Pyro mains are either furries, transgender, or femboys. So pick your poison. Make either the edgiest, cutest, or funniest cosmetic set you can think of, and with all of that preamble out of the way, let's finally delve into what will hopefully be the only guide to Pyro that you will ever need. Alright, the basic stuff. Pyro has 175 health, moves at 100% walk speed, and by default is equipped with the shotgun, the fire axe, and of course, the flamethrower. You know this, I know this, let's just skip past the introductory stuff, okay? Flamethrowers are surprisingly complicated weapons, as unlike other weapons, they don't just deal damage when you hit an enemy while adding or subtracting damage based on distance. Rather, flamethrowers shoot out loads of invisible boxes, and these boxes deal damage based on how old the oldest box that is currently touching an enemy is, eventually cutting that damage in half if your particles have been out for long enough. Jesus Christ, that is so complicated, what the fuck? And as if that wasn't bad enough already, the flamethrower also has its damage increased depending on how long your enemy has been in direct fire for. And this ramp up resets if your enemy at any point is no longer touching flame particles. And finally, critical hits on flamethrowers are affected both by age scaling and damage ramp-up scaling. For those in the crowd that didn't understand any of that, if you want to maximize your damage output, get right up in your enemy's face and keep those flames on them at all times. After hitting an enemy with a flame particle, they will be lit on fire, causing them to take afterburn damage. Afterburn deals 4 damage twice a second for a total of 8 damage per second. Afterburn also scales with the time your enemy spent under direct fire. The longer you burn an enemy, the longer they'll take afterburn, scaling from 3 seconds all the way up to 10. The flamethrower makes you the #1 spy counter. Hitting a disguised or cloaked spy with the flames will light them on fire, though cloaking does reduce all debuff timers by 20%, as well as giving the spy a 20% damage resistance to all incoming damage. Also, I don't know where to fit this into the video, so I'll just slap it in here. Hitting a friendly huntsman sniper with a flame particle will light his arrow on fire, and that'll cause that arrow to deal afterburn damage if it hits an enemy. So that's neat, I guess. Pyro's flames also cause problems for enemy medics by reducing the effectiveness of healing by between 20% and 100%, with the reduction increasing in an inverse proportion to the amount of healing the item is giving. That's what the wiki says. What the fuck does that mean? I don't fuck if I know. All I know is that it makes medics worse at healing, I guess. So go wild. Flames also decrease the effect of the Vaccinator's charges, and anything that fucks over a Vaccinator medic is a good thing. And finally, the flamethrower has a secondary attack, the Airblast. By pressing right-click, the Pyro can fire a compressed burst of air at the expense of 20 ammo and putting the weapon on a 0.75 second cooldown, meaning you can't shoot nor Airblast again until the cooldown period is over. The Airblast has a few functionalities. It can extinguish friendly players, and doing so will heal you for 20 health per Airblast. The Airblast can also push enemy players around, making it great for denying an enemy Uber charge, as Uber players can't be killed unless they're pushed into a kill box. And finally, the Airblast can reflect most enemy projectiles, with a few exceptions, turning them into your own, and also turning them into mini-crits. This is the Pyro's first bit of wild sauce. Reflected projectiles retain all of their qualities, so hypothetically, you could use a reflected crossbow shot to heal a teammate, or a rescue ranger bolt to save a sentry from being destroyed.
But fuck that shit, man!
Elephant green screen effect.
Block watch!
We're here for one thing and one thing only. To get hype clips and fat fucking plays. There is no better feeling than perfectly predicting an enemy demo man and reflecting his grenades right back at him. Or putting an overconfident soldier player in his place and showing him who's fucking boss. Fuck it, you don't even need to kill the soldier. You can redirect his rockets and take out a bigger threat. Or you can take out a group of players before then focusing on the psychotic war criminal. Hell, you can butt-fuck huntsman snipers, dragon's fury pyros, crossbow medics, engineers. The possibilities are endless, really. And with Airblast, you can even... What the fuck was that? What you all just witnessed, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals, is a reflect jump. Yeah, that's right. If the Airblast wasn't saucy enough already, you can also use it to launch yourself into the fucking stratosphere. I mean, yeah, you could use a reflect jump to escape a bad situation or to take an advantageous position from the enemy. Oh, look at this shit. This soldier thinks he's hot shit. Like, yeah, nice random crit. Would be a shame if you heckin' die. Look, what about this demo man? Yeah, nice grenade. Don't mind if I yes, like, come on, did you see that extinguisher guard? And like, oh my. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting way ahead of myself. When you decide to go full beast mode and style on an enemy soldier or demo man, you need to be very careful. Unlike soldier and demo man, you can't exactly jump back out after reflect jumping in. That, combined with the self-damage you take from the initial reflect jump and the subsequent fall damage, means that once you go in, you have to stay fully committed to whatever dumb fuck move you had planned. Now, when you perform a reflect jump, you have to treat it like a regular rocket jump. This means letting go of W and using only your A and D keys combined with your mouse to maneuver through the air. while using reflect jumps to instigate fights does look sick as fuck, I will give you that, it will usually result in your death. Reflect jumps are typically most useful when used to get out of a bad situation. Though let's be honest, if you wanted to start fights, win, and then get out safely, you wouldn't be playing this stupid character to begin with. We're here to fuck bitches, get money, and taunt after every kill. Pyro's secondary weapon is the shotgun. The shotgun is a very simple weapon compared to the flamethrower. You click with your mouse, you shoot out 6 pellets. No, that's not right. You shoot out 10 pellets. What the fuck? Why did I write 6 in my script? What the fuck? You click your mouse, you shoot out 10 pellets, with each pellet dealing between 3 and 9 damage depending on range, with a base damage of 6, meaning that crits deal 180 damage. The shotgun is a great tool for finishing off players outside of your range, or for dealing with enemy Pyro players, as Pyro is immune to afterburn. The shotgun also lets you be a constant nuisance on the front lines by assisting teammates in peppering down enemies from medium range. Not much else to say about the shotgun for now, so let's just move on. And finally, the Pyro's last weapon is the Fire Axe. It deals 65 damage per swing. It's a stock melee weapon, there isn't really anything to write home about. The only real benefit of this weapon is that it has random crits, so you might one-shot enemies with it every now and then. You know this, I know this, let's just move on to the exciting stuff already. Alright. Just like all the other classes in the game, Pyro has some unlockable weapons, some of which can drastically change how the class is played. And first up, we have the Backburner is the simplest of the unlockable primary weapons for Pyro. The Backburner only has 2 changes from the stock flamethrower. It grants crits when attacking from behind, and Airblasts cost 50 ammo instead of 20. Now, what the game considers behind is not as generous for Pyro as it is for Spy. You'll often ambush players and receive 0 crits, and other times you'll just randomly get Backburner crits out of fucking nowhere.
Killing myself on camera.
The Backburner is designed for ambushes, playing sneakily, and catching unaware players off guard as they run away from you. It's a perfectly balanced side grade to the stock flamethrower. In some situations, like when attacking on payload, it is pretty much a direct upgrade from the stock flamethrower due to the infinite ammo regen you get from the payload. And in others, it struggles to keep up due to the limiting airblast cost, like when you have to push through a tight choke point, or when you're defending from a lot of projectiles without a dispenser nearby. It is the quintessential IMDb 7 out of 10 weapon. The Phlogistinator is the Backburner taken to its logical extreme. No random crits, no airblast, but after dealing 300 damage, you get guaranteed critical hits for 10 seconds. To activate these crits, you have to taunt with the weapon deployed. You can do this either by pressing your default taunt key on your keyboard or by right-clicking. Activating the taunt starts your 10-second period of crits, as well as a 2-second ubercharge while taunting. Although the 2 seconds does allow for demomen to set up traps, snipers to scope in on your head, or heavies to rev up, so it's ill-advised, to say the least, to use the Phlog crits as a get-out-of-jail-free card.
I don't have one of those.
You should have. Am I dead?
Yeah.
Skill game! Skill game!
You can use it as a sacrificial team play to draw attention away from the objective or from your teammates, as the opposing team will most likely prioritize killing you above anything else. After the taunt is finished, you're left with 8 seconds to annihilate nearby enemies. Though there are ways to utilize the full 10 seconds of crits if you're clever enough. If for some reason you get knocked out of the taunt animation, you can potentially get up to 2 seconds longer crit duration, and more importantly, a temporary ubercharge. The timer for the ubercharge isn't tied to the taunt animation, rather it's a separate timer that runs independently of the taunt, so if you get knocked out of the animation, you will retain the uber. This is known as Phlog cancelling. And there are a few ways to do this. Explosions, Airblast, being pushed off of a payload card by a wall, or taunting on top of an engineer building as it's being destroyed, can all potentially lead to a Phlog cancel. Just make sure the building you're standing on actually gets destroyed. I got telefragged! Fuck. But if you're feeling extra spicy, you can jump on top of other players, activate the taunt, and if they move out from under you, your taunt animation will be cancelled, giving you an opportunity to run headfirst into the enemy and decimate them. Whereas the Backburner is especially powerful on offense, I myself find the Phlogistinator to be strongest on defense, as you don't have to deal with that many sentry guns, which becomes even more of an issue when you don't have Airblast, since you can't reflect sentry rockets. But furthermore, the enemy team is forced to come to you, meaning you can hang around corners and time your crit charges for when the enemy pushes. The Phlog is also especially good if you want to get cold slurs and chats. The Degreaser is the ultimate combo weapon, and while I have absolutely no statistics to back this up, I would wager that the Degreaser is the most used primary by experienced Pyro mains. The Degreaser allows Pyro to switch weapons faster, holstering 30% quicker than stock and deploying 60% faster. As for downsides, the Degreaser deals less afterburn damage, doing only 1 damage per tick instead of 4, and the Degreaser's Airblast costs 25 ammo instead of 20. The Degreaser is my personal favorite primary to use, and I believe that it is the best one, though I am well aware that I am heavily biased after using this weapon for over a decade. Pyro doesn't exactly have a high damage output, and dealing burst damage is generally better than dealing sustained damage in a game like TF2. The Degreaser's switch speed bonuses allows Pyro to quickly swap to some of her other weapons to deal massive damage, usually in the form of crits. The swap speed bonuses also allows you to switch back to your primary to play defense, for example by reflecting a rocket, which isn't always possible with the other flamethrowers. I've seen people call the Degreaser a redundant weapon, or that the swap speed bonus doesn't really matter because you can combo with other weapons, but these people are forgetting that swapping to the Degreaser is just as, if not more important, than swapping from it. In my opinion, the downsides of the Degreaser aren't really all that impactful in comparison to its benefits, which is why it's my most used primary. Though again, I do encourage you to experiment and find out what works for your playstyle, as I am heavily biased on the topic of primary weapons, and I am well aware of that. The Dragon's Fury is by far the most unique primary in the Pyro's arsenal, so this segment is probably going to take a little while because we have a lot of ground to cover. The Dragon's Fury entirely forgoes the design of other flamethrowers in favor of a single fire projectile based weapon. When left clicking with the Dragon's Fury, the Pyro will fire a large fireball, of which she has 40 loaded, that travels in a straight line and dissolves after a short while. This fireball travels further than the flames of the flamethrowers, and is tied with a few other projectiles as the fastest projectile in the game. Unlike regular flames, the fireball dissolves when coming into contact with world geometry, but it will still penetrate players and engineer buildings, so you can still hit entire groups of people at the same time. The stats for this weapon are a bit misleading, as it states on the weapon page that it deals triple damage to burning players, when in reality it actually deals reduced damage to non-burning players. Shooting an enemy will deal 25 damage if they aren't already on fire, while hitting a burning enemy with the center of the fireball will triple the damage to 75, but notably this isn't done through crit damage. The base damage of this weapon is simply just 75, as you'll see if you hit an engineer building with it, as engineer buildings always take base damage. Normally, the Dragon's Fury has a significant cooldown between shots, but hitting an enemy with a fireball will decrease this cooldown, allowing you to rapid fire if your aim is precise. The Dragon's Fury also has access to the Airblast, which costs 5 ammo to use, leaving you with a total of 8 Airblasts, though you probably won't get to use that many, as the Dragon's Fury has a massively increased cooldown after airblasting. This cooldown applies to both airblasting and firing, So if you airblast at the wrong time, you won't be able to use the Dragon's Fury for 1.6 seconds. And that is a long time in a game like TF2. Alright, now that we have the stats and theory out of the way, let's actually talk about how to use this thing. The Dragon's Fury is a criminally underrated weapon. I know I just glazed the Degreaser to high hell and back, so maybe I'm partially to blame, but this weapon strikes the perfect balance between strong, fun to use, and fair to fight. And it fundamentally changes the Pyro from this supportive pseudo-attack class to an actual threat on the front lines that demands respect. Engineers especially tend to struggle against the Dragon's Fury. If I'm facing a colony of engineers on Dust Bowl, I guarantee that 9 times out of 10, I am grabbing the Dragon's Fury if I can get a medic to follow me. Oh yeah, speaking of medics, you know what I like? Running a crit screed Dragon's Fury combo feels like a fucking war crime. Thank God above that Valve didn't just make this weapon a flare gun primary that deals 25 damage per shot and 75 on burning enemies in the form of crits. Because with this current design that we have, the Dragon's Fury deals 225 damage per shot when crits are active. This is my favorite way of getting crits as Pyro. Sure, the Phlog may be brain dead easy and allow you to rack up a godlike kill streak in no time at all, but the Dragon's Fury is like the slow dancer of TF2. There's like 5 people watching who understand that comparison. What am I doing? What I mean to say is that this weapon makes you work. It isn't as easy to use as the other flamethrowers. It demands something from you, but if you manage to live up to its high standards, you will be rewarded handsomely, I guarantee it. And finally, this is probably the best primary for dealing with enemy pyros and heavies. The rapid fire on consecutive hits means the enemy pyros can't outdamage you in most cases. And if your movement is good enough, you can probably manage to outlive heavies if you're facing them in a 1 versus 1. For the longest time, I wrote this weapon off as not being all that powerful. When it came out in Jungle Inferno, I wrote it off as an underwhelming alternative with a novel weapon design. But after actually using it many years later and getting familiar with it, I can confidently say that past me was oh so wrong. This weapon fucking slaps. With all of the primary weapons covered, it's now time to move on to the secondaries, the weapons that complement your primary weapon and cover up weaknesses. And what better place to start than with the 2 shotgun unlocks. For the longest time, the panic attack was my most used shotgun on Pyro, and for good reason. It's a strong combo tool for close quarters combat, but nowadays I tend to use the stock shotgun far more despite the random bullet spread in Valve's casual servers. If you don't know, the panic attack is the only shotgun in the game that fires its shots in a fixed pattern every time you shoot it, even when playing on servers with random bullet spread turned on. The panic attack also has 50% more pellets per shot, meaning that every shot sends out 15 pellets instead of the 10 of the stock shotgun. This leads to your shots forming a wide rectangle, making it easier to hit targets, but harder to land every single pellet unless you're up close and personal. To offset the 15 pellets per shot, the panic attack has a 20% damage reduction. These 2 stats do mean that you have higher potential damage with the panic attack when at close range, as the panic attack can do up to 108 damage per shot compared to the 90 of the stock shotgun. And to help achieve this higher theoretical damage, this weapon also has a 50% faster deploy speed, which does stack with the Degreaser's holster speed bonus, meaning you can pull this weapon out and fire it in no time either if you're caught off guard or if you're going in for close range combo plays. The last difference between the panic attack and the stock shotgun is that every consecutive shot with the panic attack widens your bullet spread, though this downside can be circumvented by waiting ever so slightly between taking your shots. In terms of combo potential, the panic attack actually pairs surprisingly well with the Dragon's Fury. After airblasting with the Dragon's Fury, it'll go on cooldown for 1.6 seconds as we discussed earlier, and if that happens, switching to the panic attack firing once, and then switching back to the Dragon's Fury is almost identical to the time you would have spent waiting for the Dragon's Fury to repressurize. The panic attack pairs perfectly with most weapons, though personally, I prefer using it with either the Degreaser, the Dragon's Fury, or the regular flamethrower. This weapon is a super well balanced side grade to the stock shotgun. It does beat out the stock shotgun in close range combat due to its higher damage output and faster switch speed, whereas the stock shotgun fares better at medium ranges where the panic attack's lower damage and wider bullet spread is really felt. Picking between these two shotguns is honestly a question of personal preference in most situations, though there are two scenarios where I personally tend to use the panic attack over the shotgun. If there's a competent heavy player on the opposite team, I usually find myself switching to the panic attack, as the slightly higher damage and switch speed can be the difference maker in the Pyro v heavy matchup. And likewise, I also find myself running the panic attack if there's a good Pyro on the enemy team that is running a shotgun, for the same reasons. The reserve shooter is an unlockable secondary for the Pyro and Soldier that has one main purpose when used on the Pyro: to fuck over enemy soldiers. The reserve shooter mini-crits enemies who have been launched into an airborne state by either explosions, the thermal thruster, or grappling hooks. Back in the day, it would also mini-crit airblasted enemies, and back then, Airblast would also stun-lock your opponent, letting you line up your shot for an easy kill. Luckily, those days are past us. Outside of mini-critting airborne players, this weapon also deploys 20% quicker than the stock shotgun, so you can get it out and ready to fire quickly. This makes it a sort of in-between version of the shotgun and the panic attack. The reserve shooter does retain some of that extra switch speed you would have with the panic attack, in exchange for the regular 10 pellet random bullet spread firing style of the shotgun. These upsides come at the cost of a 34% clip size penalty. This means that the reserve shooter only has 4 shots loaded at a time. In my opinion, this downside is significant enough to warrant not running the weapon full time, especially if your aim isn't amazing. In theory, you should be able to finish off most targets with 4 shells, but if you find yourself struggling in fights with having to reload before you kill your opponent, you'd probably be better off switching to stock over the panic attack. If I find that the enemy team has a roaming soldier that's doing a lot of damage to my team, I'll usually switch to this weapon to try and keep him in check, though it also works against sticky jumping demomen, pyros using the thermal thruster, and enemies who are damage surfing your team's explosives. And of course, most saucy of all, enemies that have been launched by reflected projectiles. You can reflect rockets back at soldier players, send them flying, and mini-crit them to add salt to the wound. Again, a perfectly good side grade that has its uses where it really shines. At this point, the flare-gun is synonymous with Pyro's secondary weapon. The flare-gun is a projectile-based weapon that deals 30 damage regardless of range, lights enemies on fire for 7.5 seconds for 60 total afterburn damage, and has a 2-second reload time, though all flare-gun type weapons automatically reload when holstered. And finally, the flare-gun crits burning players. I love this weapon. It opens up so many possibilities for the Pyro. To borrow a fighting game term, the flare-gun allows Pyro to poke at enemies from a distance to find an opening to get in and cause some major damage, sort of like playing footsies in Street Fighter or Tekken. Keeping up the Street Fighter analogy, you can forego footsies entirely and just go full Unga Bunga. This is Combo Pyro. There's just something about the danger, the risk of only having one shot in your secondary at all times, and that shot being a projectile. If you miss, you're screwed. But on the flip side, hitting that flare is pure dopamine, especially if you're going for air shots, flicks, or long-range flare snipes. This is my most used Pyro secondary. I don't know if I'd call it the best, but it sure as hell is fun. When using it to play a poke-heavy playstyle, it only really struggles when fighting other Pyro players, as they're immune to afterburn, so you can only really do 30 damage at a time to them. Is what I would say if I was a fucking chud. Once again, the Degreaser is king. Due to the switch speed of the Degreaser, you can set up small fire traps in the air and then hit enemies with a crit flare while they're in those fire traps. This works against enemy pyros as well. They will always take a critical hit of 90 damage if you manage to do this successfully. Now, would it be easier to swap to a shotgun and gun down the pyro? Yeah. The timing for this is a bit tight, I will admit. But like, come the fuck on, you cannot tell me this isn't cool and hype and awesome and sexy and all of those other adjectives. Is it impractical? Yes. Is it technically less DPS than the shotgun? Also yes. But is it saucy? Oh, you bet your sweet ass it is. Where the shotgun allows Pyro to keep up constant pressure and maybe take on multiple enemies at once, the flare gun functions best as a weapon for 1v1 fights, or a tool to take out a single high priority target, although this is TF2 after all. Remember that dead horse from the beginning of the video? The one about mechanical depth and all that stuff? Yeah, the flare gun can absolutely let you destroy entire servers if you're skilled enough. You just gotta know how to pick your fights correctly. On a final side note, the flare gun can also be used to perform small explosive jumps, though you need specific map geometry to do this. If you want to learn more, there's a short video by LED in the description of this video that'll explain how to do it. But, like, this is impractical in 90% of cases. If you want mobility, you need a different secondary weapon. I would say that the Detonator is probably my second favorite flare gun, despite its shortcomings in the damage department. The Detonator does 25% less damage than the flare gun, knocking its damage per shot down to 23, and it also only mini-crits burning players, dealing 30, which is the base damage of the regular flare gun. To make up for this, the Detonator has the ability to detonate your projectiles mid-air by right-clicking with the Detonator deployed, sort of like the Demoman sticky bomb launcher. This allows you to hit multiple opponents at the same time, hit people who are behind cover, and to still hit people you would have otherwise missed if not for the explosion. The explosive flare also allows you to destroy sticky bombs, helping your team push through chokes, or punishing poorly positioned demomen trying to escape. The final stat of the Detonator is a plus 50% self-damage, and although this text is highlighted in red, it is honestly the biggest upside of the weapon. Due to the ability to self-damage, the Detonator functions sort of like a mini sticky bomb or rocket launcher, allowing you to do small explosive jumps with it. Performing a Detonator jump is pretty easy if you're already familiar with rocket jumping, though unlike rocket jumping, you don't need specific terrain to do certain jumps. Rocket jumps rely on your rockets hitting a surface at a specific angle to be propelled in the right direction, but since you manually detonate the flare, you get to decide how vertical or horizontal you want your jump to be, regardless of map geometry. Simply look behind you, crouch, jump, and shoot while holding down the right mouse button, and you will have performed a Detonator jump. This lets Pyro be a lot more mobile, and opens up for the flank Pyro playstyle. By combining the Detonator with weapons like the Backburner or Dragon's Fury, you become very mobile, independent, and capable of dealing high damage from surprising angles. Though this isn't the only way to use the Detonator. The Detonator is a perfectly fine weapon for regular team play and crowd control due to the explosive projectile. Some people give the Detonator a hard time for lacking damage, but I think that these people aren't grasping the full picture. What they mean is that the Detonator rarely gets finishing blows like the flare gun does. This is true. The Detonator's low single target damage cannot compete with the flare gun. The flare gun allows Pyro to be a menace in 1v1 scenarios, but the flare gun, likewise, is no match for the Detonator's crowd control capabilities. Not all damage in the game has to be a finishing blow. By spamming the Detonator into a choke point and igniting loads of enemies at once, and then hitting them all again for mini-crit damage over and over again, you're softening them up and very importantly, preventing medics from healing effectively, because as I mentioned in the flamethrower segment, flames reduce the healing from mediguns. You may not be the one getting the kills, but you're setting the rest of your team up to get those kills instead. The spamminess and the crowd control nature of the Detonator also makes it a great pairing with the Phlogistinator, as you can charge the Phlog in no time at all if you get your detonation timing down. And then, after activating your crits, the Detonator allows you to close the gap and get the most out of your crits. The Detonator can also let you Phlog cancel more easily by using it to jump on top of unaware players and activating the Phlog taunt on the way down by holding down the right mouse button as you land on their head. The Detonator is also a great option to run with the Dragon's Fury for similar reasons as the Phlog. You can light a lot of people on fire at once and then run in and deal 75 damage per shot per enemy hits. These are of course standout examples, but the Detonator is a great secondary regardless of the primary weapon that you're running. The Scorch shot is like the evil little brother of the Detonator. Similar design, but one fights fair, while the other uses cheap tricks to gain the upper hand. The Scorch shot deals 35% less damage than the flare gun, and like the Detonator, it only mini-crits burning enemies. This means that the base damage of the Scorch shot is only 20 damage per shot on a non-burning player, and then 26 damage on enemies that are on fire. The Scorch shot also fires an explosive projectile that shares some properties with the Detonator. Like the Detonator, the Scorch shot can destroy sticky bombs, and it also has a self-damage stat, though it only deals 35% self-damage, so while you can use it to jump, you won't go nearly as far as you would with the Detonator. But the real devilish stats of the Scorch shot are these final two. The Scorch shot deals knockback on hit, with knockback increasing on burning players, and after hitting someone with the Scorch shot, the flare will enter a slow freefall state, and when it collides with a surface in this freefall state, it will explode. This lets you hit the same enemy 2 times with a single shot, dealing first 20 damage, then 26 damage, and then 60 potential afterburn damage, not to mention all of the players around that enemy that are now also on fire. This weapon makes it nearly impossible to push past choke points due to the knockback. Even the Heavy, who is supposed to be resistant to all knockback, doesn't resist the Scorch shot for some godforsaken reason. And of course, this weapon pairs beautifully with the Phlogistinator. Unlike the Detonator, you don't have to manually detonate your flares. You can just sort of spam it down choke points and have the Phlog charged in a few seconds. I prefer using the Detonator, but the Scorch shot is definitely easier to use. An easy way to solve this dichotomy of secondary weapons is by seeing the weapons as 2 different buffs to the Phlog. The Scorch shot will give you more frequent Phlog charges, whereas the Detonator will give you more potent Phlog charges if used correctly. And, much like the Phlog, the Scorch shot is also great if you want to collect death threats like their Pokemon cards.
Goose.
If I had to take a guess as to what the least used Pyro secondary is, I'd be pretty confident in saying that it's the Manmelter. And you know what? I think that's a shame. The Manmelter is a neat, although niche option that can actually be really handy in some situations. Unlike the other flare guns that come with 16 shots, the Manmelter has infinite ammo, and a 50% faster projectile speed. The Manmelter is also unique in that it doesn't deal extra damage to burning players. Instead, the Manmelter has the ability to store crits for later use. By holding down right click, the Manmelter will start acting like a vacuum, extinguishing nearby teammates and granting 1 crit and 20 health for every burning teammate extinguished, unlike the Airblast, which only grants you 20 health per Airblast, regardless of the amount of people you put out at a time. This gives the Manmelter a very niche use. Since you gain 20 health per extinguish, you can heal yourself back up to full health in nearly an instant and help out a ton of teammates at the same time. The ability to extinguish burning players also makes the Manmelter a decent choice if you're running the Phlog and you still have some semblance of a soul left and want to help out your team instead of focusing on getting crits on the Phlogistinator. The Manmelter's fast projectile speed also makes it a decent option for harassing snipers at long distances, especially if you have a crit loaded. The 90 damage of the crit paired with the afterburn means that the sniper has 5 seconds to find a way to get rid of the fire or he will die. The Manmelter is also a decent option to fight enemy pyro players if you insist on running a flare gun, but you don't really feel comfortable flare punching yet. I think this weapon is neat and pretty okay. The Thermal Thruster is a weapon that I've only just recently taken a liking to. The Thermal Thruster is a jetpack for the Pyro that allows you to perform one huge jump at a time and take reduced fall damage while thrusting with it. The Thermal Thruster has 2 charges that take 15 seconds each to refill, and you have to touch the ground before you can use a second charge, so you can't exactly jump in and then jump back out if you change your mind on the way down. You have to fully commit until you land on the ground. As one of only 3 weapons in the game, the Thermal Thruster allows you to kill people by landing on their heads and transferring fall damage into them, allowing you to perform some pretty stupid kills. This weapon pairs beautifully with the Backburner, and maybe to a lesser extent the Phlogistinator and the Dragon's Fury. While any primary weapon can work with the Thermal Thruster, if you're using the Degreaser, you are handicapping yourself. The Thermal Thruster's long deploy and holster animations can't be sped up with the Degreaser, and those switch speed bonuses are the Degreaser's only upsides. So you'd be better off using any of the other primaries for the deadlier afterburn, less expensive Airblast, or crit gimmicks. Honestly, the biggest downsides of this weapon are that you're left without a damaging secondary weapon when running it, and that your air control is halved when thrusting, making it a bit harder to escape in some scenarios. Like the Detonator before it, the Thermal Thruster is an excellent tool for the flank pyro playstyle. And while I personally prefer using the Detonator, I will once again acknowledge that I am heavily biased in this matter, and I encourage you to find your own style, experiment with what weapons you like, and not take my word as gospel. Also, the Thermal Thruster has a built-in fart choke, so that makes this weapon overpowered. Don't use this weapon. It serves no utility that isn't provided by any of your other unlockable weapons. The Gas Passer is a throwable secondary that needs to be charged before use. It takes a full minute to charge, but can be sped up with damage dealt, which takes roughly 750 fucking damage. When the Gas Passer is finally charged, you can throw it, and when it lands, it'll spawn a cloud of gasoline. This cloud will stay in that area for 10 seconds and is considered a liquid, so it can be used to extinguish teammates. The real quote-unquote benefit of this weapon is that when a player is covered in gasoline and takes any form of damage, or even if they jump with the rocket or sticky jumper, they will be lit on fire for 10 seconds. And as the only weapon in the game, the Gas Passer's gas cloud has the ability to deal afterburn to other pyro players. I don't understand what they were thinking at Valve when they made this weapon. Like, it takes 750 damage to charge the Gas Passer for a 10-second period of area denial, while it only takes 300 to charge the Phlogistinator. If you want more info, go watch the Zesty Jesus video on this weapon. This weapon sucks, don't use it. Let's move on. Actually, the Gas Passer is a fart joke, so that makes this overpowered. No, fuck. No, don't. Most of Pyro's unlockable melee weapons are utility tools, weapons designed to help the Pyro with either shortcomings that he struggles with, or to help her be better at something he's already good at. And there's never really any reason to use the stock fire axe, unless you just use it because you think it looks swag as fuck, which it does. I mean, there is truly no reason to use the default melee on Pyro when you have access to the 3rd degree. The 3rd degree is the only statistical upgrade in the game. apart from the holy mackerel and the unarmed combat, but like the upside of those two are so minuscule that in most cases it makes zero difference. Though some do argue that the third degree puts you in the wrong headspace, which leads to you making stupid mistakes, thus balancing the weapon out. The third degree has the upside of damaging players through medigun heal beams. Let's say you sneak up on a soldier and his pocket medic with a third degree, and you hit the soldier with a nasty fat ass random crit. On top of the soldier taking 195 damage, the medic will also instantly take 195 damage, resulting in his death if he was healing the soldier when you attacked. This also transfers to other medics healing the same target. If there's one of those obnoxious aimbot heavy players on the enemy team with 4 medics up his ass, hitting any of those medics or the heavy will damage every one of them. There are a few caveats to this upside. For example, if the heavy has the Fist of Steel deployed when you attack him, you will deal 130 damage to the heavy, but still only 65 to the medic. Again, this weapon is the only direct upgrade to its stock counterparts in the entire game, though that does not make it amazing by any stretch of the imagination. The only time I ever find myself running this weapon is if the enemy team has a good medic that also just so happens to be a pocket medic and all running the Vaccinator, while I also have a good medic on my team that's willing to heal me. There are a few times where I've gotten some use out of this item, but the third degree's biggest downside isn't anything statistical or the mindset it puts you in, it's the fact that it isn't the Powerjack. The Powerjack is probably Pyro's best melee option in like at least 50% of the games you play. If you're familiar with the escape plan for the soldier, just think of the Powerjack as a slightly less amped up version of that weapon. When holding the Powerjack, you gain an additional 15% movement speed at the cost of a 20% damage vulnerability. This means you can run faster than Spy and Medic at the cost of taking more damage from all sources. For example, a grenade will now deal 120 damage to you, and a sniper can insta-kill you with a quickscope headshot or a fully charged body shot. Getting kills with the Powerjack also restores 25 health, though that is in my opinion the least impactful stat on this weapon. It's just a nice bonus. The Powerjack really excels at 3 things: getting into combat, repositioning between fights, and getting the hell out of dodge. There isn't really much else to it. At this point, it is pretty much the default Pyro melee regardless of loadout. Flog Pyros, Combo Pyros, Flank Pyros, most of them use the Powerjack, and for great reason. Also, did you know there's a hidden stat on this weapon? That's right, the Powerjack will always fucking crit. Like, I have no idea why. It always fucking crits. Like, every single time I use this weapon, it will randomly crit. There are no exceptions. The Back Scratcher is another weapon that just seems like a better version of the stock fire axe. And it is just that in a lot of situations. If there are no engineers or medics on your team, or if you're not attacking on payload, there is zero reason to use a stock fire axe over the Back Scratcher. The Back Scratcher has one single downside, that being you receive 75% less healing from healers. And this effect is active regardless of which weapon you're holding. The term healers refers to all medigun types, dispensers, payloads, and the amputator's area of effect taunt. However, this effect does not apply to Crusader's crossbow bolts, so if you're in a pinch, a medic can negate the effect. This single downside is balanced out by 2 upsides. The Back Scratcher does 25% more damage, bringing it from 65 to 81 per attack, and you gain an extra 50% health from all health packs and thrown lunchbox items. This 50% bonus comes out to 52 health from small health packs and 132 health from a medium health pack. Just like the minus 75% heal rate stat, the bonus health from health packs is also a passive effect, so you'll benefit from this upside even if you're busy shooting at enemy gamers. I adore this weapon. It is especially fun to use on a flank-heavy loadout. Gaining 132 health from a medium health pack is absolutely insane, and can put you back in the fight a lot quicker than the 88 health you would normally receive. Remember, no engineers, no medics or no payload card, and this weapon is a straight upgrade from the fire axe. Don't sleep on this weapon, it is criminally underrated. As if the Pyro didn't fuck over Spy hard enough already, the Homewrecker takes this figurative French fuckery and puts a fresh twist on it. The Homewrecker deals 25% less damage to players in exchange for double damage against buildings. Both of these stat changes are calculated from the base melee damage of 65, so the Homewrecker will do 49 damage to players and 130 damage to buildings. On top of that, the Homewrecker also, for some reason, has the ability to remove sappers. Let me present you with a hypothetical scenario real quick. Imagine you're playing Spy. You sneak behind enemy lines. You navigate all the way to the enemy engineer. He spots you, but you're not just any Spy. You've read Berserk. You're that guy. You're him. You pull out your kunai and battle ensues. The Texan charges at you. You grip your knife, hold your breath, and retaliate. Now a mirror to the engineer, charging at him too. As you enter striking distance, your life flashes before your eyes. You grip around your kunai tenses, and the room goes quiet. Your Japanese gardening tool is now firmly planted in the poor engineer's name, and as your disguise falls and the dust settles, he drops to his knees, defeated, lifeless. However, the battle is not yet won. You have a mission. You came here with a purpose. Your target is in sight, and likewise, you've been spotted too. The engineer's sentry gun starts firing at you, and you use the 210 health that the engineer's life had granted you to get close enough to the sentry gun. You make it just in the nick of time, and you plant your electro sapper on the gun. All is well. You did it. You channeled your inner guts and came out on top. You are the hero of the day. And out of fucking nowhere comes some fuck-ass Pyro, grills you to a piece of charcoal, and then whacks the gun once! And the gun is saved. Being the honorable spy main that you are, you call the Pyro the N-word and leave the game, convincing yourself you actually had to leave anyway to go do something productive. But what the hell? You're on the main menu. What harm could just one more round of Harvest do, right? This weapon is stupid. I mostly just swap to it when I walk out of spawn and see our teleporters being sacked. Not because it's a bad weapon or anything, I just prefer the more flashy and offense-oriented weapons. Though the Homewrecker does have a niche on offense, as the Homewrecker can one-shot mini and level 1 sentries and 2-hit upgraded sentry guns. So there's that. Though personally, I would rather use Dragon's Fury to take out the gun and the engineer at the same time. I will occasionally use this on defense if our engineers are having a rough time against a competent spy, but most of the time I'd rather go for a more flashy weapon. The Neon Annihilator, like the Homewrecker, does less damage to players, though only 20% less as opposed to the Homewrecker's 25%, meaning that anyone hit with this weapon will take 52 damage. Also, like the Homewrecker, this weapon removes sappers, though it takes 2 swings with the Neon Annihilator as opposed to the single swing of the Homewrecker. This weapon also crits wet players, at the cost of not getting random crits, meaning you can deal 156 damage to players covered in water, Gerati, mad milk, or gasoline. I'ma be so real, this weapon isn't too great. It's mostly used on maps covered in water, and there aren't really many of those in the game. And if you're using this to help out your engineer friends, you'd be better off just using the Homewrecker. The only real way to get any use out of the crit on wet players upside on most maps is by using the gas passer, the worst fucking weapon in the game, hooray! And that by itself should tell you that this weapon is best used as a Pyro Shark meme weapon. The Sharpened volcano fragment is a simple weapon. It deals 20% less damage, but it lights enemies on fire for 7.5 seconds for a total of 60 afterburn damage. But why would I want to do that when I have a flamethrower? If I'm fighting someone with my melee, they are most likely already on fire anyways, so I'd rather just have the increased damage of the stock fire axe. This is easily one of Pyro's worst melee weapons. Despite how bad the Neon Annihilator is, I would rather use that consistently than the fuck-ass volcano fragment. Hell, I'd even fucking use the hot hand over this. This weapon is so ass, don't get me wrong. But at least it's semi-fun to use, and it does have some, though limited, utility. The hot hand isn't like other melee weapons. It swings twice per attack, meaning your damage is halved and then distributed across 2 different instances. This, coupled with the 20% damage penalty of this weapon, means you'll only deal 28 damage per swing for a total of 56 damage. Hitting an enemy with any of these 2 swings will give you a speed boost. This boost lasts for 1 second, and it can be used to reposition, get out of combat, I guess. But if I wanted a speed boost to get out of combat, I'd use the Powerjack or the Axtinguisher. Let's be honest, if you're using the hot hand, you're only using it to be funny, and that's perfectly fine and acceptable. Oh yeah, I just mentioned the Axtinguisher. Fuck, guess I gotta talk about that weapon. Here we are, at the end of the road. I've saved the best and the most saucy melee weapon for last. My personal favorite Pyro melee, the Axtinguisher. Not my most used, not the one that I think is best. Those titles both go to the Powerjack. But my personal favorite, the one I find the most fun. The Axtinguisher is a pretty complicated weapon by melee standards. It deals 33% less damage than stock, can't random crit, and holsters 35% slower. All pretty notable downsides if you ask me. But remember, this is the saucy weapon. And the astute viewers among you might have realized that this is the final weapon of the video. And that obviously means that shit's about to get wild. This weapon mini-crits burning enemies and then extinguishes them. And you may be sitting there in your little chair thinking, wait, 33% less damage and then a mini-crit? That still comes out to less damage than the stock fire axe. What is this guy on about? And to that I say, yeah, you're right.
Oh, fuck.
When hitting a burning player with this weapon, you deal more damage depending on how much time is left on the afterburn timer, scaling from 86 damage to 167. On top of that, killing a burning enemy with the Axtinguisher gives you a 35% speed boost for 4 whole seconds. That shit makes you faster than a fucking scout, giving you mobility to get up close and personal, leading to massive chain kills. But wait, there's even fucking more! If you pair this weapon with the Detonator or reflect jumping, you can get some insane clips like holy fuck, did you see that? Oh, did you see that shit? This is like Trollja but awesome. Soundsmith, do you hear? I'm coming for you, Soundsmith. It does not get any more saucy than this. This is peak Pyro. Just watch out for TF2's horrible melee hit registration when using the Axtinguisher. Oh, 3 missed melees, by the way. 3 missed melees. Okay. Personally, I tend to pair the Axtinguisher with the Detonator or the Scorch shot. The Axtinguisher makes up for their lack of high burst damage, and the Detonator and Scorch shot both cover the mobility that you're missing out on when not running the Powerjack, though the Detonator is the clear winner in the mobility department. Recently, I've also been experimenting with running this with the flare gun. While I do miss having my mobility, I cannot deny you can do some insane damage with this combo. Now that you're familiar with all of the unlocks, I'll quickly flash some loadouts on screen that I would recommend running. These are loadouts that I have personally found to be effective in most situations. However, it is important that you do not think of these as full-time weapon sets. TF2 is a game of constantly changing tides, and one of the often slept-on parts of being good at this game is knowing when to swap to a different weapon or even an entirely different class. There are situations where switching off of Pyro for a little bit is your best course of action, and you should not be ashamed of that. Pyro just isn't designed to be strong in all scenarios the way Medic, Demoman and Soldier are. But remember, we are not playing Pyro because he's a strong class. We are playing Pyro for one reason and one reason alone. The Source. There's no way! There's actually no way. There's actually no way. Thank you so very much for watching this video. It truly does mean a lot. Before I sign off, I'd like to give a massive shout out to my artist Olivia, whom I have commissioned to do some of the artwork that you've seen in this video. And a link to her Blue Sky profile can be found in the description of this video. I've got some more TF2 related videos in the works at the moment, some of them differing very wildly from the guide format that I seem to be attracted to. But balancing my job, personal life and other hobbies means that I can't exactly promise that they'll come out anytime soon. I mean, hell, just look at how long it took me to make this godforsaken video. Anyways, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, or if you like femboy!